A brief history of Eritrea. Hello Displorers, welcome to another interesting video presented to you by Displorer and thanks for watching. In this video we shall look at the brief history of Eritrea. Eritrea is a country in the Horn of Africa, located on the Red Sea. This pretty country was the gateway through which Christianity penetrated Northeast Africa in the 4th century and Islam in 615 AD. It shares borders with Ethiopia, Sudan, and Djibouti, with its capital at Asmara, which is known for its Italian colonial buildings, like St. Joseph Cathedral, as well as Art Deco structures. Starting its history from the Italians who created the colony in the 19th century, passing through Britain, Egypt, Ethiopia, and others, it was a long struggle right up to the independence, which was officially celebrated on April 27, 1994. Thanks to the country's history and link with several countries, its culture, architecture, and lifestyle is reflective of many ingredients and variations. Hence, in this video, we shall take a quick trip to the event leading to the late acquisition of independence of this country. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and turn notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. Eritrea is a multi-ethnic country with 9 recognized ethnic groups in its population of around 6 million, and is considered to have played a major part in terms of human evolution from Homo erectus to anatomical modern humans. Getting into the early history of the country of Eritrea was an integral part of both the kingdoms of DMT and Aksum, along with Ethiopia. After the fall of Aksum, the Eritrean highlands were under the domain of Christian kingdom of Medjugorje Bari, ruled by Bari Negus. As a more extensive Ethiopia develops, from about the 10th century AD, Eritrea became part of its northern province, administered by a governor known as Bar Nagesh. But in the 16th century, this valuable stretch of Red Sea coast falls to the strongest empire of the day, that of the Ottoman Turks. From 1557, the Turks occupied the important island and harbor of Massawa. For 3 centuries, Massawa remained either directly in the hands of the Turks or in the possession of their vassal states at various times, ruled from Mecca and from Egypt. But from 1869, with the opening of the Suez Canal that year, and the Red Sea directly accessible to the Mediterranean traffic, there was a new kind of visitor seeking a presence on this coast, the Italians. Between 1869 and 1880, an Italian line, the Rubattino Navigation Company, acquired from the local sultan stretch of the coastline near the small town of Assep. In 1882, these holdings are transferred to the Italian state, and 3 years later, Italian troops landed at Assep and Massawa, meeting little resistance. John IV, the current king, then died in an 1889 fighting against an army pressing in from the Sudan. He is succeeded by Menelik, whose first response to the Italian presence on the coast is to make an alliance to his own advantage. He signs a Treaty of Uchali in 1889, where he accepts the Italians' right to Eritrea and cedes to them territories in the north of Ethiopia, around Keren, Massawa, and Asmara, in return for money and weapons. Even though the Italians tried claiming Ethiopia by force or tricks, Menelik led an army that disgraced the Italians and removed them from colonizing Ethiopia. But then Menelik, through territorial concessions, continued to accept the Italian presence in the northern region of Eritrea, ceded in 1889. The peace treaty signed in Addis Ababa in 1896 confirms the Marab River as the border between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Given the Italians were able to acquire Eritrea, they cherished their Red Sea colony by sending out tens of thousands of Italian settlers, developing road and rail transport, and turning Asmara into a charming town. But as with all European colonies in Africa at this period, little was done to improve the conditions or education of the Eritreans. When Italy enters World War II as one of the Axis powers in 1940, Italian East Africa becomes a target for the Allies, and early in 1941, British forces moved from Sudan into western Eritrea. They defeat the Italians in a battle for the strategic town of Keren, commanding the route south into the Ethiopian highlands, and Asmara is occupied on April 1, 1941. British and Ethiopian forces accomplished the final defeat of Italian East Africa when they entered Addis Ababa in May. Ethiopia is thus brought back under the legitimate rule of Haile Selassie, while the British provided temporary administration in Eritrea. But this is also a region for which Haile Selassie has plans. During the first half of the century, with the Italians in possession of Eritrea, Ethiopia had been landlocked. The defeat of Italy in World War II gave Haile Selassie the chance to redress his deficiency. In a meeting with President Roosevelt in 1945, he stresses his need for access to the sea through the possession of Eritrea, an area loosely linked with Ethiopia at various periods in the past. The USA, seeing the chance of a naval base in the Red Sea at Massawa, showed an interest in this development. When the United Nations considered the future of Eritrea in 1948 to 1950, Washington applies pressure for its annexation by Ethiopia. The UN decision given in 1950 is that Eritrea shall become part of Ethiopia from 1952 as an autonomous federal province with its own constitution and elected government. That year, an Eritrean administration duly takes control, bringing to an end the temporary British rule in the region. Within Eritrea, opinion was divided largely along Christian versus Muslim lines on the question of union with Christian Ethiopia. On one side is the Unionist Party, founded in 1946 with financial assistance from Addis Ababa. On the other is the Muslim League, set up a year later to campaign for Eritrean independence. In the election, the Unionists failed to win an outright majority, hence the Eritrean government is therefore at first a coalition. However, there will be continuing agitation for independence. Haile Selassie shamelessly interferes to secure his aim of union. With his help, the Unionists remove Muslims from government jobs, put an end to teaching in Arabic, ban all other political parties in 1958 and trade unions in 1959, introduce Ethiopian law, and even give the Eritrean government a new name, making it merely the Eritrean administration. In these circumstances, and with the persecuted leaders of the independence movement now abroad, the result is a foregone conclusion. When the Ethiopian and Eritrean parliaments debate the question of union in November 1962, on a unanimous vote in both Addis Ababa and Asmara, it is agreed that Eritrea's federal status within Ethiopia shall be abolished. The area is now to become a province like any other in the Ethiopian Empire, but this does not amount to the independence desired by the Muslim leaders, but there is a degree of unanimity. In 1960, Eritrea's Muslim leaders living in exile formed the ELF, or Eritrean Liberation Front, to fight for independence. By the mid-1960s, they have a guerrilla force operating in western Eritrea, and in a few years they cease to be a purely Muslim government. Soon after the Union of 1962, Haile Selassie interferes in Tigray schools, banning Tigrinya, the local language, and replacing it with Amharic. This converts many Tigray Christians to the cause of independence. Eventually, after bitter disputes and even outright warfare between rival factions in the Eritrean independence movement, a single powerful group emerges as a distant offshoot of the original ELF. This is the EPLF, or Eritrean People's Liberation Front, dedicated to a religion as demanding and intolerant as either Christianity or Islam in their most radical forms. The EPLF was a highly effective Marxist enterprise. The EPLF is offered an unexpected chance to achieve its aims in 1974, when Ethiopia is convulsed by a major upheaval which they grab with hands. The toppling of Haile Selassie's imperial regime in Ethiopia and the subsequent 3 years of conflict between rival groups competing for power gives the EPLF a welcome breathing space, and all the major towns of Eritrea are freed from Ethiopian rule. And when it became clear by 1977 that the winning group in Addis Ababa was the Derege, led by the Marxist Mengistu, the EPLF might reasonably expect a friendly ally, but that was not the case. The USSR rushes in to claim Ethiopia, previously a client state of the USA, for its own side in the Cold War. And it suits the USSR, just as it had previously suited the USA, that its new ally should control the valuable Red Sea port of Massawa. With a plentiful supply of Soviet arms, it was easy for Mengistu to recover the towns of Eritrea back into the hands of Ethiopia by the end of 1978. But it was difficult for a conventional army, however well supplied, to suppress entirely a dedicated group of guerrillas. The EPLF, controlling much of the countryside, were able to keep Ethiopia in a continuous and costly state of warfare on its northern border. This fact, combined with the unpopularity of Mengistu's rigidly socialist policies, exacerbated by the appalling famine of 1984, caused the Ethiopian regime to look increasingly insecure by the mid-1980s. The beginning of the end for Mengistu and the Derge is in 1987, when the Eritrean guerrillas, the EPLF, were strong enough to move south past Nakfa into highlands of Ethiopia. In 1988, they joined forces with another Marxist group fighting for regional independence, the TPLF, or Tigray People's Liberation Front. In 1990, in the most crucial step of all, they captured Massawa, cutting off Ethiopia's link with the sea. The merging of the TPLF with another guerrilla organization to form the EPRDF, or Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, helped them move south from Gondar into the province of Wello. Mengistu puts forth further acts of desperation, but then by May 1991, it is clear that there is nothing to prevent the rebels reaching Addis Ababa. Mengistu flees the country. The EPRDF takes power under its chairman, Meles Zenawi, who promises a new form of government, guaranteeing rights to regional minorities, including Eritrea's claim to independence. In a referendum held in April 1993, the votes cast for Eritrean independence were more than 99% of the total. The following month, the long dream becomes a reality, and the Secretary General of EPLF, Isaias Afwerki, becomes president of a transitional government. In 1994, the EPLF completes its transformation from a guerrilla organization to a political party called the PFDJ, or People's Front for Democracy and Justice. Eritrea maintains unprecedentedly good relations with Ethiopia in the continuing spirit of the easy path to independence, as trade flourishes between the two countries, particularly after custom duties were abolished in 1995 on their mutual border. Despite prevailing issues, the two nations have learned a better way of resolving their conflicts. There you have it, explorers. That was a brief history of Eritrea. Thanks for watching this video, and if you did enjoy the video, do well to give it a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe and share with your friends.